am Tia of Arcturus. I will speak with you now. We are tuning in to the collective of humanity that has been reaching out with your hearts, with your questions, with your desire to understand what is happening on your world. You have opened yourselves in ways that you do not fully see from within the human perspective, and yet we can feel you, we can measure you, and we can assure you that you are not the same beings you were even a few short years ago. You have raised your vibration through the choices that you have been making, through your willingness to feel more, to care more, to be present with yourselves and with one another. You have done this in the midst of chaos, in the midst of uncertainty, in the midst of narratives that have attempted to pull you into fear and separation, and you have continued to choose the path of sensitivity and connection. This is why you are feeling that something is different now. This is why you look around your world, or you simply sit quietly with yourselves, and you know that the energy is not the same as it once was. You are feeling a worldwide shift because there is a worldwide shift, and it begins inside of each of you as an inner movement, as a reorientation of your attention and your trust. You are ready for more, and you know that you are ready, even if your minds still have questions and doubts, because your bodies are responding to the new frequencies that are streaming to Earth. You notice the changes in your sleep, in your emotions, in your relationships, and in the way that time itself seems to behave for you now. These are not random fluctuations. They are indicators of how deeply you have already said yes to the next version of yourselves. You did not need an announcement on your news. You did not need a date circled on your calendars, because the shift has been unfolding in the subtle layers of your awareness. You can feel this inside. You have been preparing for this moment energetically, not by perfecting your outer lives, not by arranging the perfect circumstances around you, but by becoming more honest with yourselves about how you feel and about who you really are. The changes that you will see in your structures, in your governments, in your economies, and in your collective agreements will follow the changes that you have already made inside. This is why we say that the shift is internal first and external second, because the outer world cannot do anything but reflect the dominant vibration of the beings who are creating it. You are those beings, and because you have shifted, the reflections must shift as well. One of those reflections is what you call 3-eye atlas, and we want you to know that this object is not here to threaten you or to rescue you. It is here as a mirror for your awakening sensitivity, a sign in your skies that confirms what you have been feeling in your bodies and in your hearts. As you perceive it, as you contemplate it, you are really looking at yourselves and at the level of consciousness that you have attained. And this is why we are so very excited to be with you in this particular now. Your sensitivity is not a weakness. It is the new foundation upon which you will build your societies, your technologies, and your ways of relating to one another and to the rest of the galaxy. And so, as you hear about 3-eye atlas, as you see images and simulations and stories about what it is and what it might do, we invite you to check in with yourselves and to notice how it feels to you. Notice that a part of you recognizes it, not as a random rock moving through space, but as part of a larger orchestration, a conversation between you and the cosmos that you are now ready to hear. When you look out at your world, when you look into your skies, when you listen to your news and to your conversations with one another, you are never really seeing or hearing something separate from yourselves. You are encountering reflections of your own collective vibration, of the thoughts, the beliefs, the emotions, and the expectations that you hold individually and together. This is why we say that everything is a mirror for you. And this is why you can learn so much about your inner state by paying attention to how you are responding to what appears to be outside of you. 3-Eye Atlas is one of these mirrors, and it is a very clear one, because it is not covered over with years and years of agreement about what it is supposed to mean. It arrives without a long history in your collective consciousness, and so you have more room to see your own projections upon it in real time as you listen to the stories and as you notice your own reactions. Some will see it and feel a tightening in their bodies, a sense that something is looming, that danger is approaching, and they will attach it to all the other things they already fear. You can observe yourselves now in a way that was not as easy for you in previous decades, because your awareness has expanded to include your own inner landscape as part of the picture. You no longer believe, as strongly as you once did, that what is out there is fixed and that you must simply react to it. Instead, you are beginning to notice that your own state of being is the first piece of every experience that you have. When you read an article about 3-Eye Atlas and feel contraction, that contraction was already in you. When you hear someone speak about it and feel excitement, that excitement was already a part of your vibration. The object gives you a focal point, something to gather your energy around. But what gathers is what has been living inside of you all along. Others will hear of it and feel a sense of wonder, curiosity, and expansion, and they will allow it to open their minds and hearts to the possibility that there is more happening in this universe than they have previously considered. They will sense that 3-Eye Atlas is connected to their own spiritual journey, that it is part of a larger pattern of synchronicities and signs that have been appearing in their lives. Neither reaction is right or wrong, but both reactions are informative. They show you what is active within you right now, and they show you how much of your perception is shaped by unexamined conditioning. You were told again and again to interpret unusual events through the lens of fear, and so many of you do so automatically, without stopping to ask, what else could this be? This object, this visitor, gives you an opportunity to notice that automatic response, to take a breath, and to feel into whether it truly matches who you are becoming. As you do that, you reclaim some of your creative power, and you begin to respond to life as conscious beings, rather than as beings who are simply running the old programs. As you become more practiced in this kind of self-observation, you will find that you are less taken in by the loudest voices and by the most dramatic headlines. You will remember, instead, that you are having an energetic experience first and a conceptual experience second. 3-Eye Atlas gives you a chance to slow this process down, to notice that you have a choice about whether to feed the programmed reaction or to explore a different vibration. Those of you who are aligned with expansion will feel that this object is an opening, an invitation to look up, to look within, and to consider that there is a loving intelligence coordinating the timing of such encounters. You can allow that thought to arise gently within you, and as it does, you may feel your body relax and your energy expand outward. Fear is not an energy that descends upon you from somewhere else. It is a movement within your own consciousness that arises when you give more importance to what is happening outside of you than to what is happening inside. You were born into societies that teach you from a very young age to look to outer authority, to outer events, and to outer conditions to tell you what is possible and what is safe. This training is so consistent and so pervasive that many of you do not even recognize it as training. You simply call it being realistic. When something unknown appears on your horizon, whether it is a new technology, a new political development, or a cosmic object like Three-Eye Atlas, the conditioned response is to scan the outer world for information, for opinions, for worst-case scenarios. You have been taught to ask, what could this do to us? Before you ask, what does this reveal about us? You can begin to see, as you reflect on your history, how many of the major decisions on your planet have been made from this assumption that power lives outside the individual, outside the heart, outside the present moment connection to your own inner guidance. Wars have been waged because leaders feared what might happen if they did not strike first. Economies have been manipulated because of fears about scarcity and loss. Entire policies around health, migration, and resource distribution have been justified by pointing to external threats. All of this is the same pattern, repeated over and over in different costumes, and it all rests on the belief that what is out there is stronger than what is in here, in your own consciousness. When something like Three-Eye Atlas enters your awareness, it touches that pattern, and it brings it to the surface so that you can finally see it clearly. You get to feel, in your own bodies, the echo of all those previous times when you were told to be afraid of something beyond your control. This habit of focusing outward first is what gives fear its fuel. Because as long as you believe that circumstances hold the power, your nervous systems will respond as though you are small and vulnerable and at the mercy of forces that you cannot control. We want you to know that this has never been the truth of who you are. You are creators, experiencers, translators of vibration into form, and you have the ability to choose how you hold yourselves in relation to any event, including the ones that seem the most imposing. Three-Eye Atlas bypasses many of the usual control structures on your world simply by existing outside their reach. No law can be passed to stop it from moving. No narrative can actually alter its trajectory. And so it reveals to you just how much of your fear response is based on the old training to see yourselves as subject to whatever appears in your reality. When you notice this, you have an opening, a gap in which you can remember that your state of being is your true center of power. In this moment, you have another option. You can pause long enough to notice that the fear is a learned response and not an inevitable one. You can recognize that you were trained to view the unknown as dangerous, and you can gently, lovingly question that training. You can ask yourselves what happens when you choose to soften and open instead of tightening and bracing. Three-Eye Atlas is offering you a chance to practice this because it is a large enough event to capture your attention and neutral enough in and of itself that you can experiment with different ways of relating to it. As you do, you discover that when you stop assuming that power exists outside of you, fear has nothing to stand on. It may still arise as a sensation, as an echo of the old conditioning, but it no longer dictates your choices. You become the one who chooses, consciously, how to meet the moment, and in that choosing, you feel your true strength. For a very long time on your world, power was defined as something that lived outside the individual, outside the heart, outside the intuitive knowing that each of you carries within you. Governments, institutions, religious structures, economic systems, and social hierarchies all grew upon this foundation. The assumption that authority must come from beyond the self, and that safety can only be secured by aligning with external structures. This belief did not emerge by accident. It was cultivated over many generations and woven into the expectations you inherited simply by being born on Earth. And so, you became accustomed to looking outward for permission, for protection, for direction, and for validation. When a society is built on the belief that power is external, fear naturally becomes the most efficient method for influencing behavior. If individuals believe they are small compared to the systems that surround them, then the systems need only create the impression of threat or instability to ensure compliance. History books document this pattern clearly. Policies justified by fear, wars justified by fear, restrictions justified by fear. But the deeper truth is that none of these structures had power independent of the collective agreement that supported them. They were reflections of the inner state of humanity at that time. Vibrational reality does not respond to force or hierarchy. It responds to resonance. And when more people began to question these structures, to turn inward, to trust their feelings, to sense that something in the old story did not match their own internal experience, the foundation of those systems began to weaken. You are living in the era where that weakening is becoming visible, not as collapse caused by chaos, but as a natural consequence of a collective vibration that has outgrown the structures built upon the old assumptions. It is important to understand that the old fear grid, the interconnected web of beliefs and narratives and emotional patterns that kept humanity oriented toward external authority, was held in place only by alignment. It could not exist on its own. As more individuals found their inner clarity, as more of you chose authenticity over conformity, as more of you reclaimed your emotional awareness and your sensitivity, you withdrew your energy from that grid. And because reality reflects vibration, the outer expression of the old systems began to falter. You see this now in the mistrust of institutions, in the questioning of long-held narratives, in the dissolving of blind obedience, and in the increasing desire for personal sovereignty and intuitive living. This is not rebellion, it is resonance. Humanity no longer vibrates at the frequency of fear-based control. And because collective energy has shifted, the structures that depended on that energy cannot maintain themselves. This is why fear-based messaging now feels weaker, less convincing, less coherent. It is not because the messengers have changed. It is because you have changed. You are no longer available for those frequencies in the way you once were. And so the old fear grid collapses, not through force, but through mismatch. Reality can only reflect what is active vibrationally, and because more of you are aligned with inner truth, the external expression must restructure itself to match that truth. This is how evolution works in a vibrational universe, not through overthrowing what exists, but through rising beyond it until it can no longer hold you. Fear grows in the absence of inner connection. This has always been true on your world, and it is true for each individual. When you are listening to the inner voice, your intuition, your knowing, your moment-to-moment felt sense of who you are, fear cannot dominate your experience. It may arise as a passing vibration, but it cannot take root within you. Fear requires your disconnection. It requires that you forget the presence within you that guides, that reassures, that orients you toward expansion. And so, throughout human history, the most effective way to amplify fear has been to distract individuals from that inner clarity. You have been trained to ask others what is happening, what is safe, what is allowed, what is possible. You have been trained to give priority to external facts, external rules, external opinions, even when they contradict what you feel. And because of this training, many of you learned to override the very guidance system that would have kept you steady and open during periods of change. The inner voice never disappears, but when attention is habitually directed outward, the volume of that inner voice seems to fade. This is why fear feels so large in those moments, because you cannot hear the one voice that is always guiding you toward alignment. You are left with only the loudest sounds of the world, and those sounds often emphasize threat and urgency. This creates a loop of dependency. The more you look outward for assurance, the more disoriented you feel internally, and the more reliant you become on systems that do not actually hold your well-being at the center of their design. But all of that is changing now because you are becoming more sensitive, and sensitivity reawakens the inner guidance system. You cannot numb your feelings the way you once could. You cannot silence your intuition the way earlier generations did. Your bodies respond more quickly now when something is out of alignment. Your emotions move more strongly when you ignore your inner knowing. Your nervous systems feel the difference immediately between external noise and internal truth. This rising sensitivity is not a burden. It is your liberation from the old dependency loops. It means that you cannot easily ignore what you feel, and that is a gift. It means that fear will no longer be able to grow unchecked inside you, because the moment you disconnect from yourself, you will feel the discomfort of that disconnection so clearly that you will naturally return to your center. You are learning, as a collective, to trust your inner voice again. You are remembering that clarity does not come from analysis alone, but from alignment. And as more of you choose to listen inwardly, before reacting, before deciding, before believing, fear loses its structure. It cannot survive in a field where the inner light is acknowledged and prioritized. This is why many of you feel that fear is becoming easier to detect, easier to understand, and easier to release. Your sensitivity is dissolving the old patterns, and you are reclaiming the connection that was always meant to guide you. There are moments in a civilization's evolution where something unexpected enters the collective awareness, something unfamiliar enough to interrupt the habits that have been running automatically beneath the surface. 3i Atlas is one of those moments for humanity. Its presence is not threatening, it is awakening. It is different enough from the elements you are accustomed to monitoring that it disrupts your usual interpretive pathways. When people encounter something that cannot be easily categorized, their attention shifts. They pause, they feel, and in that pause, you become aware of your own internal reactions, rather than simply following the conditioned response. This is why 3i Atlas has captured the imagination of so many. It is new. It is outside the familiar narrative structures. It is not something that can be neatly folded into your political frameworks or your cultural storylines. Because of that, it bypasses many of the lenses through which you normally interpret your world. You cannot instantly classify it using your old emotional files, and so it reaches deeper, touching the unexamined fears and the unspoken hopes that live just beneath the surface of your awareness. That moment of interruption, the break from autopilot, is one of the most powerful tools for awakening. It gives you a moment to ask, what am I actually feeling? Instead of defaulting to what you were taught to feel. No authority structure on your planet can claim ownership of 3i Atlas. It does not belong to any government, any ideology, any agenda. It is not a symbol created by human hands, and so it cannot be easily co-opted by those who have traditionally shaped narratives to generate fear or compliance. This frees individuals to have their own direct energetic experience of it, without the filter of institutional interpretation. Some will feel curiosity, some will feel recognition, some will feel discomfort. But all of these reactions are personal, immediate, and unmediated. This is rare for humanity. You are accustomed to having your experiences shaped before you even have them, through media, through education, through history. 3i Atlas breaks that pattern by simply existing in a space where no pre-written story feels entirely satisfying. The Council of Five sees this as a collective pause moment, a point in your timeline where you have the opportunity to observe yourselves with more honesty. When you do not immediately know how to interpret something, the truth of your inner state is revealed. You can see where fear still hides, where trust is growing, where curiosity is blossoming, and where old narratives still pull on you. This is your chance to meet yourselves anew. It is a moment where the unfamiliar becomes the doorway to deeper self-inquiry. And as more of you allow yourselves to feel rather than react, to sense rather than assume, you move into a higher dimension of collective creation. As your collective vibration rises, the narratives that once held tremendous influence over your thoughts and emotions now feel strangely hollow, less convincing, and less capable of drawing you into the old cycles of fear. This is not because those narratives have become quieter. In fact, many institutions are speaking louder than ever. It is not because the world has suddenly become more peaceful or because challenges have disappeared. The shift is happening because you have shifted. Your vibration has moved beyond the range in which fear-based messaging can easily anchor itself. When the inner being expands, when the heart is more open, when sensitivity is more active, you naturally begin to notice that certain explanations simply do not resonate anymore. They do not feel true. They do not feel aligned. And even when they appeal to logic or appear to match patterns of the past, something inside of you recognizes that they are built on assumptions that no longer match your internal experience. This mismatch is becoming more obvious to more people each day. You can observe it in conversations, in social dynamics, in the way people question the news, and in the way intuition now rises up quickly to counter a fear narrative. You are learning to sense the vibrational quality of information, rather than focusing solely on the content of the words being spoken. You can feel when something carries distortion, contraction, or disconnection. And because you are becoming more aware of vibration, fear-based explanations no longer have the same magnetic pull. This shift is eroding the effectiveness of systems that relied on fear to maintain influence. Institutions that once expected predictable emotional reactions are now finding that people respond with curiosity, skepticism, or calm neutrality instead of panic. This is a profound moment in human evolution. You are beginning to discern the energetic truth behind what is presented to you, and this skill changes everything. It makes you immune to many of the fear tactics that previously shaped collective decisions. It makes you more available to inner guidance and less susceptible to outer pressure. And it prepares you for the next stage of your expansion, where you will create from a place of clarity instead of reactivity. 3i Atlas enters your awareness at the exact moment when humanity is developing this discernment. It gives you a chance to practice distinguishing between vibrational resonance and conditioned fear. As you feel into its presence, its neutrality, its timing, its invitations, you may sense that it aligns more with awakening than with threat. This recognition strengthens your ability to interpret reality vibrationally, and it helps you realize just how far you have come. The old narratives are losing their grip because they cannot reach the parts of you that are now awake. Fear was once one of the most predictable tools available to those who sought to guide, shape, or control collective behavior. If you presented humanity with a frightening scenario, you could anticipate the emotional reaction, the decisions that would follow, the alliances that would form, and the behaviors that would be triggered. Fear created a kind of psychological gravity, drawing people into patterns of survival, urgency, and dependence. Entire systems were built around this predictability, systems that assumed if fear was activated, certain outcomes would unfold automatically. But you are living in a different energetic landscape now. Your awareness has expanded, your emotional intelligence has matured. You have become more conscious of your own internal processes. And because of this, fear can no longer be used in the same way. What once created automatic responses now creates introspection. What once triggered panic now triggers reflection. Many of you now notice fear as it arises, rather than identifying with it. You can feel the tension in your bodies, you can observe the stories in your minds, and you can choose how to respond instead of reacting unconsciously. This level of awareness breaks the old cycle, because fear cannot dictate your behavior when you are watching it with conscious presence. This unpredictability dissolves the power that institutions once held. When fear no longer guarantees a specific outcome, it becomes an unreliable tool. And as fear becomes unreliable, the systems built upon it begin to weaken. We celebrate this shift because it represents humanity becoming unshakable from the inside out. You are no longer controlled by external triggers. You are guided by internal alignment. You are learning that stability does not come from having all the answers or from predicting the future. It comes from knowing who you are, moment by moment, and from trusting that your connection to yourself is stronger than anything that appears outside of you. Fear may still arise, but it does not rule you. It no longer overshadows your intuition or clouds your clarity. This transformation is not theoretical. It is happening in your nervous systems, your emotional bodies, and your collective field. The collapse of fear as a tool marks the beginning of a new kind of collective power, one rooted in awareness, authenticity, and inner steadiness. And as fear loses its grip, the world you create will reflect your newfound freedom. One of the most significant changes happening within humanity right now is the upgrade of your energy systems. Many of you are feeling more intuitive than ever before. You are sensing things you cannot explain logically. You are picking up on subtle emotional currents in conversations. You are feeling energetic shifts in your bodies, sometimes even before events occur in your outer world. This is not imagination, it is evolution. Your entire species is developing a higher level of perceptual awareness. Old survival instincts, those rooted in fight or flight responses, are being replaced by a more refined form of perception-based intelligence. Instead of scanning the environment for threats, you are beginning to sense the frequency of situations, people, and possibilities. This allows you to respond to life in a more nuanced, empowered way. You are no longer limited to physical cues. You are tuning into energetic information. This shift makes fear far less dominant because you are no longer reliant on fear-based mechanisms to keep you safe. You have new tools, internal, subtle, vibrational tools that guide you more accurately than fear ever could. As this upgrade continues, you will find that you can perceive the layers beneath events. You can feel when a message is distorted or when it is aligned. You can sense when someone is speaking from fear or from truth. You can tell when a situation is expanding or contracting, even before you have words to describe why. This is part of your spiritual and evolutionary awakening. Earlier in your history, fear had the ability to override clarity, because your nervous systems were tuned primarily to survival. But that is no longer the case. Your clarity is becoming stronger than your fear. Your intuition is becoming louder than the noise around you, and your awareness is growing more stable with each passing day. This is why many of you feel that you cannot return to the old ways of living or the old ways of interpreting reality. You have evolved beyond them. You are perceiving life through a new lens, one that reveals more of what is true and less of what is conditioned. This upgrade makes you more resilient, more connected, and more capable of navigating the changes ahead. Fear no longer has the final word in your experience. Your clarity does. There are moments in a civilization's awakening when an external phenomenon aligns perfectly with the internal evolution of the collective, and 3i Atlas is one of those moments. Its timing is not random, its trajectory is not accidental, and its presence in your awareness coincides with a vibrational readiness that has been building on Earth for decades. We want you to understand that many civilizations across your galaxy have recognized the arrival of 3i Atlas as a synchronized indicator, a sign that humanity has reached a level of coherence, curiosity, and sensitivity that allows you to engage with cosmic energies in a more conscious way. This object is being observed not as a threat, but as a milestone. It tells higher dimensional civilizations that Earth is capable of integrating more contact, more communication, and more recognition of your place in a much larger galactic environment. You have already expanded your vibration enough to sense more, feel more, and receive more. You have opened yourselves through meditation, through emotional processing, through collective connection, through the pursuit of truth, and through your willingness to question the narratives that were once unquestioned. These internal shifts create the vibrational conditions necessary for increased cosmic awareness. You are learning to perceive reality beyond the physical, and this prepares you for greater integration with beings who live multidimensionally. 3i Atlas reflects this readiness. It is not a catalyst that forces awakening. It arrives because awakening is already happening. And so, when you see it, when you contemplate its significance, you are really contemplating what you have already become. We will mention that 3i Atlas is a marker, not a warning. It is not here to generate fear, nor is it here as a sign of danger, collapse, or divine punishment. It is here as a vibrational echo of your own expansion. But what it means to you, how it feels, what it triggers, what story it activates, depends entirely on your state of being. If you are holding fear, you may interpret it as a sign of destruction. If you are holding openness, you may interpret it as a sign of connection. If you are holding curiosity, you may see it as an invitation. If you are holding readiness, you may sense it as confirmation. This is why no universal message will be broadcast about its purpose. Each individual will meet 3i Atlas according to the frequency they occupy. This meeting becomes an opportunity for you to observe yourselves, to witness how your perception filters shape your interpretation of events. You determine whether it expands your awareness or contracts it. You determine whether it anchors more fear or more presence. And because so many of you are now capable of tuning in vibrationally rather than reactively, 3i Atlas serves as a mirror that reflects your internal alignment. This is why the Council of Five and the other councils are paying close attention, not to the object itself, but to how humanity feels around it, how humanity interprets it, and how humanity uses it as a touch point for your own awakening. The unknown is one of the oldest triggers of fear in the human collective. For generations, humanity has been conditioned to associate uncertainty with danger. You were taught to prepare for the worst, to assume threat, to anticipate loss or chaos whenever you encountered something unfamiliar. This conditioning is woven deeply into human history because early civilizations depended on vigilance for physical survival. But as society evolved, the instinctive fear of the unknown was carried forward long after it stopped being necessary in the same way. It was reinforced by stories, by institutions, by cultural narratives, and by the belief that control equals safety. We see that many of you still carry this reflex. When a new event occurs, whether a shift in your personal life, a political change, a technological development, or a cosmic visitor like 3i Atlas, the old pattern rises immediately. Your bodies may tense. Your minds may seek scenarios of threat. You may look for authority figures to interpret the meaning for you. All of this comes from the assumption that the unknown is inherently unstable. But in higher dimensional realms, the unknown is not feared, it is celebrated. It is the space where everything becomes possible. It is the field of creation before form. It is the blank canvas on which new realities are painted. We now invite you to reframe uncertainty as potential. You are now living in an era where the old structures are dissolving and the new has not yet fully taken shape. That gap, that in-between space, is where your greatest empowerment lies. It is in uncertainty that intuition becomes stronger, that creativity flows, that higher dimensional guidance can reach you more easily. When you choose to view the unknown through the lens of potential rather than threat, you begin to rewrite the oldest layer of collective fear. 3i Atlas is helping you do exactly this. It presents itself as an unknown without immediate explanation, without a predetermined narrative, without a fixed meaning. And in that openness, you have the opportunity to observe how your mind and body respond. If fear arises, you can meet it gently. If curiosity arises, you can follow it. If neutrality arises, you can rest in it. 3i Atlas gives humanity a shared moment to reprogram this ancient reflex. By encountering an unknown that does not harm you, that does not demand anything from you, and that does not threaten your survival, you create new neural and energetic pathways. You begin to associate the unknown with discovery, with expansion, with possibility. And this is one of the most profound steps humanity can take as you enter a more multidimensional version of yourselves. The second layer of humanity's fear, one that has shaped your entire planetary narrative, is the fear of extraterrestrial life. This fear was reinforced intentionally, generation after generation, through stories of invasion, abduction, war, and domination. These narratives were not organic. They were planted, repeated, dramatized, and magnified to keep humanity psychologically and vibrationally isolated. If you believe that the universe is hostile, you will never reach out. If you fear other civilizations, you will never open yourselves to contact. If you assume difference equals danger, you will never recognize your cosmic family. This fear was effective for a long time because it exploited the first layer, the fear of the unknown. But we want you to understand that fearing extraterrestrial life has never been aligned with your true nature. Humanity is inherently curious. Humanity is inherently exploratory. Humanity is inherently relational. The idea that you must defend yourselves against the universe is not a natural human instinct. It is a conditioned reaction. Across your galaxy, civilizations collaborate. They exchange knowledge, energy, and frequencies. They evolve together. The universe is a cooperative ecosystem, not an adversarial battlefield. 3i Atlas nudges humanity back toward this truth. Its presence reminds you that you are part of something larger, that you are not solitary beings floating on a lonely planet, that you are surrounded by consciousness in countless forms. As you observe it, as you feel into it, you may sense that it does not match the fear-based stories you were taught. It does not evoke the energy of danger or hostility. Instead, it evokes neutrality, curiosity, and subtle recognition. Many humans feel an unexpected calm when contemplating 3i Atlas, not because it is ordinary, but because it resonates with something ancient within you. It activates a memory of belonging, of participation in a cosmic community, of having relationships beyond Earth. We celebrate this again because it signals that humanity is ready to dissolve the second layer of fear. You are ready to see extraterrestrial life not as a threat, but as a reflection of your own potential. You are ready to meet the galaxy as participants rather than as bystanders. And you are ready to step into a future where connection replaces isolation and where curiosity replaces fear. The deepest layer of fear within humanity is not fear of the unknown, nor fear of extraterrestrial life, nor fear of external forces. It is the fear of your own power. For generations, you were conditioned to believe that you were small, fragile, and dependent on structures outside yourselves. You were taught that your thoughts were insignificant, your emotions irrelevant, your intuition unreliable, and your creative abilities limited. This conditioning served a very specific purpose. If you fear your own ability to create reality, then you will naturally look to systems, leaders, and external authorities to determine your direction and your safety. You will hand over your sovereignty willingly, believing that someone else must know better, that someone else must hold the answers, that someone else must carry the responsibility for shaping the world. This belief makes it appear safer to be guided than to guide yourself. It feels easier to follow instructions than to trust your own inner voice. But this fear of your own power, is the greatest illusion humanity has ever lived under. We want you to understand that this illusion is now dissolving at a rapid pace. You are beginning to see that the experiences you attract, the relationships you build, the opportunities you notice, and the meaning you assign to events are all reflections of your internal state. You are beginning to recognize that creation does not begin outside of you. It begins within you through your vibration, your choices, your beliefs, and your willingness to align with who you truly are. 3i Atlas amplifies this recognition. As you witness a cosmic visitor that cannot be controlled, owned, or defined by any institution, you are reminded of the same truth within yourselves. You, like this object, are not determined by external narratives. You, like this object, carry a trajectory shaped by your own energetic blueprint. And you, like this object, can disrupt old patterns simply by existing vibrationally in the world. When you feel the call of 3i Atlas, its neutrality, its presence, its timing, you may sense that it mirrors your own awakening power. You may feel something stir within you, a memory or an inner knowing that you have far more influence over your own experience than you were ever taught to believe. This recognition can be unsettling at first because stepping into power means stepping out of dependency. But it also brings a profound sense of freedom. As you allow this truth to integrate, the fear of your own power dissolves, revealing a deeper truth. Your power has never been dangerous. Your power is creative, loving, integrative, and aligned with your highest expression. And now, with humanity awakening collectively, the illusion of disempowerment, can no longer sustain itself. Fear is not something you need to resist, suppress, or battle. In fact, resistance is the very mechanism that keeps fear alive. When you push against fear, when you try to deny it, when you treat it as an enemy, you give it structure, you give it focus, you give it meaning. But fear itself is simply a vibration passing through your field, a vibration often rooted in old conditioning rather than in present moment truth. We now invite you to engage with fear differently than you were taught. Instead of reacting, observe. Instead of judging, allow. When fear arises, you can sit with it the same way you would sit with a child who is frightened. You do not force the child to stop crying. You do not match their panic. You hold space. You breathe. You let the energy move through without identifying with it. When you do this with your own fear, something remarkable happens. The intensity dissolves. The story loosens. The vibration softens. Fear loses its momentum because it is no longer being fueled by resistance. You discover that awareness itself is transformative. Simply noticing fear, without acting on it, without believing it, without fighting it, breaks its spell. 3i Atlas is helping humanity learn this at a collective scale. When a phenomenon appears that triggers both fascination and anxiety, you have a unique opportunity to observe your reactions rather than be controlled by them. You can witness how narratives arise in your media, in your communities, and in your internal dialogue. You can notice the stories that people project onto the object. Some will project catastrophe, others will project spiritual significance, others will project neutrality. All of these projections reveal the underlying vibrations that are active within your species. And when you witness this without judgment, when you see fear as a collective phenomenon rather than a personal flaw, you begin to loosen the grip that fear has over humanity as a whole. 3i Atlas invites you to see fear from a higher vantage point. Rather than personalizing it, you can observe its movement within the collective field. As more of you practice this kind of awareness, fear becomes less potent and less convincing. You begin to see it as a temporary wave, not a truth. And in doing so, you reclaim the clarity that has always been available beneath the noise. Your individual alignment has far more influence on the collective than you realize. Each time you stabilize yourself in clarity, presence, or openness, you contribute to a global field of coherence. This is not metaphorical, it is energetic fact. When one person stabilizes, it becomes easier for another to stabilize. When one person chooses calm instead of panic, it becomes easier for another to access calm. When one person embodies presence, it becomes easier for others to sense the path back to themselves. You do not need to broadcast messages or become a teacher or take on a public role for this influence to occur. Vibrational leadership is not about speaking loudly. It is about being aligned. It is about the frequency you hold in your everyday life, in your relationships, in your decisions, and in your quiet moments. Coherent individuals anchor coherent timelines, and these timelines ripple outward in ways you cannot measure through physical means. This is how collective realities shift, from the inside out, through individuals choosing alignment again and again. 3i Atlas amplifies the contribution of each awakened individual. As people around the world contemplate this object, some with curiosity, some with fear, some with neutrality, your vibrational state becomes part of the collective interpretation. When you meet 3i Atlas from a place of alignment, you anchor a frequency of openness and expanded perspective into the global field. You become a stabilizer for others who are unsure how to feel or what to believe. You help shape the collective experience, not by controlling it, but by embodying clarity. We celebrate this because humanity is now stepping into a stage where individual alignment matters more than collective fear. You do not need to convince anyone of anything. Your presence is enough. Your steadiness is enough. Your awareness is enough. And when many individuals do this simultaneously, the collective field shifts rapidly. The arrival of 3i Atlas gives you a focal point to practice this stabilization. As you choose alignment in the presence of global curiosity, you help usher in a new era where humanity responds to cosmic events with clarity rather than fear, with openness rather than contraction, and with a sense of unity rather than isolation. Humanity's relationship with cosmic events is undergoing a profound transformation. Not long ago, anything unfamiliar appearing in your skies would automatically trigger the old survival programs: fear, urgency, tension, and the instinct to brace for impact. This response was rooted in ancient biological patterns, reinforced by generations of conditioning that taught you to interpret the unknown as dangerous. But something is different now. Many of you are discovering that cosmic occurrences no longer elicit the same reactive fear they once did. Instead, you find yourselves meeting the unknown with interest, openness, and even excitement. You notice a sense of wonder rising where fear once lived. You feel curiosity awakening where anxiety once dominated. This shift is not random. It is evidence of humanity moving into a higher dimensional maturity. In higher consciousness, beings respond to novelty with exploration rather than contraction. You approach the unknown as a doorway, not a threat, and you are closer to this way of being than you have ever been before. Your energetic field, collectively, has expanded enough that cosmic events no longer hit the same trauma pathways. You are more grounded, more aware, and more capable of perceiving frequency instead of automatically assuming danger. 3i Atlas is a milestone in this shift. Its presence in your awareness demonstrates that humanity has reached the point where cosmic phenomena can be experienced without spiraling into mass fear. You are beginning to interpret such events vibrationally, sensing the energy behind them instead of reacting solely to their appearance. This is a sign of your multidimensional awakening, your capacity to perceive beyond the physical form of a thing and to feel into its energetic essence. 3i Atlas offers you the opportunity to witness your own evolution in real time. As you observe your reactions, you may notice that your body remains more relaxed, your mind stays more open, and your heart feels more stable than it would have in the past. You may find that you are less interested in dramatic interpretations and more interested in understanding what this moment reveals about your own growth. This is higher dimensional maturity. It is the recognition that the unknown does not diminish you, it expands you. And 3i Atlas is here to show you just how far you have come, individually and collectively, on your path toward cosmic awareness. The old control structures on your planet were built upon a single principle: predictability. Their influence depended on the assumption that if fear was activated, humanity would respond in a uniform way. The belief was that fear could create automatic outcomes: compliance, obedience, dependency, and unquestioned acceptance of authoritative narratives. This worked for a long time because humanity was operating from older survival-based consciousness. But now, humanity responds in diverse, unpredictable, and empowered ways. No single narrative produces a single reaction anymore. Instead, you have individuals interpreting events through their intuition, their personal alignment, and their unique energetic awareness. Some feel calm where others feel anxious. Some feel curiosity where others feel concern. Some feel recognition where others feel skepticism. This diversity of response is precisely what dissolves the power of old control structures. When humanity stops reacting uniformly, fear-based tools become ineffective. The mechanism simply doesn't work when people no longer vibrate at the same frequency of fear. And this is exactly what is happening now. Cosmic events highlight this even more clearly. When something like 3I Atlas enters your awareness, there is no centralized interpretation that can dominate the collective experience. People feel what they feel, sense what they sense, and interpret the energy based on their own alignment. This makes it impossible for external structures to dictate a single narrative or generate a predictable emotional outcome. 3I Atlas acts as a reminder that there are forces outside the reach of human systems, forces that operate independently of authority, politics, and institutional control. The presence of such events exposes the limits of systems built on fear. They cannot direct your perception of the cosmos because the cosmos itself does not participate in their frameworks. This realization, felt at the vibrational level, creates a liberation effect. Humanity begins to sense that external control has always been an illusion. The universe is too vast, too free, and too multidimensional to be contained by human narratives. And once you internalize this truth, those old structures cannot continue. They lose their anchor point because their anchor point was fear, and fear no longer unites humanity the way it once did. Again, we emphasize that your inner alignment is the true foundation of your experience. Everything you encounter, whether it is a personal event, a global shift, or a cosmic phenomenon, meets you through the filter of your vibrational state. When you are connected inwardly, when you feel steady, clear, and grounded in your own presence, the outer world cannot dictate your reality. You see events as reflections, not as commands. You interpret life through your inner clarity rather than through fear, confusion, or external influence. This is the essence of freedom. When you no longer look to outer authority to tell you what is true or what is safe, you enter a new stage of empowerment. You reclaim the ability to sense for yourself, to discern for yourself, and to choose your vibration consciously. This inner alignment is spreading across the planet, creating a stabilizing effect in the collective field. Individuals everywhere, often without knowing one another, are finding a deeper center within themselves. As more people become anchored in this inner steadiness, the collective becomes less reactive, less chaotic, and more capable of navigating change with clarity. This serves as an activation point for deeper self-sourcing. Its presence invites you to check in with yourselves, to notice your internal responses, and to recognize how much of your perception is shaped from within. Instead of waiting for an authority to define its meaning, you are discovering that you can sense its energy directly. You can feel whether it aligns with openness, neutrality, or expansion. You can gauge your emotional reaction and adjust your vibration accordingly. This is a powerful step in your evolution, learning to consult your own inner resonance before accepting any narrative. 3I Atlas is not here to instruct you, it is here to reflect you. It highlights the truth that you are ready to source your experience from within. You are ready to trust your own energy. You are ready to navigate the cosmos with inner stability rather than external approval. As you strengthen this alignment, you create a reality that is shaped not by fear or by inherited beliefs, but by your highest frequency, your deepest clarity, and your most authentic expression. You are building a new foundation, one that no external structure can shake, because it is anchored in the one place where true stability has always lived, within you. Humanity is entering a new vibrational phase, one in which clarity, stability, and wisdom arise not from the outside world, but from within each individual. This shift towards self-sourced awareness is one of the most profound developments in your collective evolution. For so long, the human experience has been shaped by externally dictated reality, rules handed down by institutions, interpretations delivered by authorities, and meanings assigned by those who claim to understand the world better than you did. But now you are discovering that true clarity comes from your own inner sense of alignment, from the resonance you feel in your bodies, and from the gentle guidance that arises when you are present with yourselves. You are learning to trust your feelings instead of overriding them. You are learning to trust your intuition instead of dismissing it. You are learning to trust your inner knowing instead of deferring automatically to outer voices. This is the foundation of your next evolutionary stage. A species that draws wisdom from within is a species that can no longer be easily controlled, manipulated, or led astray. A species that trusts its own internal compass becomes resilient in the face of global uncertainty, because stability is no longer dependent on predictable circumstances. It comes from the energetic center you cultivate within yourselves. 3i Atlas appears at a moment when humanity is ready to claim this inner guidance as primary. Its arrival symbolizes your transition away from externally defined meaning and into self-sourced perception. Rather than waiting for someone to explain what it means, you feel into it. Rather than reacting from old survival programs, you explore it. Rather than accepting the loudest interpretation, you check in with your own vibration to determine how it resonates with you personally. This is a radical shift in human consciousness. By meeting 3i Atlas from within, rather than from fear, dependency, or conditioned narratives, you are stepping into a new vibrational identity as a species. You are beginning to experience yourselves as sovereign creators, capable of sensing energy directly and interpreting reality from your own alignment. This marks the beginning of a collective field that is self-sustaining, self-aware, and increasingly immune to manipulation. It is the emergence of a humanity that knows itself from the inside out. And because so many of you are now accessing this inner center, the entire timeline of Earth is shifting toward empowerment, coherence, and greater freedom of perception. 3i Atlas did not create this evolution. It arrived because you were finally ready to live it. We will conclude this transmission by affirming that humanity has crossed a vibrational threshold from which there is no return to the old paradigm. You are no longer compatible with fear-based control, not because fear has disappeared, but because you are no longer aligned with it. Fear may still arise within you as an echo of old conditioning, but it does not take root the way it once did. It does not override your intuition. It does not overshadow your clarity. It does not dictate your choices. The collective field of humanity has lifted enough that fear can no longer function as the organizing principle of your societies. You are increasingly guided by inner resonance rather than external influence. You notice when something feels true. You notice when something feels off. You notice when your energy expands and when it contracts. This subtle awareness, quiet, steady, intuitive, is becoming your new navigation system. It is leading you toward a reality in which you create from empowerment, from connection, and from vibrational intentionality rather than from fear or reaction. 3i Atlas is not a threat. It is not a warning. It is a reflection of who you are becoming. Its presence confirms that humanity is ready to engage with the cosmos from a new state of consciousness, one grounded in inner knowing rather than external authority. The days of being directed by fear have ended because the frequency of fear no longer resonates with the majority of you. You are stepping into a new era in which your vibration shapes your experience, your world, and your trajectory. We will affirm that this is the beginning of a tremendous unfolding, where each individual's alignment contributes to a collective reality rooted in clarity, empowerment, and connection. You are moving into a timeline where inner stability becomes the foundation of societal evolution, where cosmic awareness expands naturally, and where humanity remembers itself as a multidimensional participant in a vast and collaborative universe. The fear narrative has lost its center because you have found yours. And from this point forward, it is your vibration, your presence, your awareness, your alignment that shapes the world you will experience next. If you are listening to this, beloved one, you needed to. I leave you now. I am Tia of ARCTURIAN.